the Adobe-Figma deal, and the Twitter Elon Musk deal. This is MacVoices. Today's edition of MacVoices is supported by Kolide. Kolide is a fleet visibility solution for Mac, Windows, and Linux that can help you securely scale your business. Learn more at kolide.com/MacVoices. Welcome to MacVoices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. The MacVoices Live panel concludes their discussion of the Figma and Adobe deal, and then turns to the latest in the Elon Musk Twitter saga. Let's go back and let the panel do the talking. Jeff, I want you in, but before we do, I want to welcome Brittany Smith to the panel. Britt, good to see you. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Chuck.
You keep having these interesting outdoor backgrounds. I like it.
Yeah, you like my virtual background? I got the sun to shine right on me.
Yeah.
Good job. That's some impressive lighting work. Nicely done.
Thank you. Yeah.
It really is. Jeff, I want to give you a chance to respond to Mark, but I also have a question for you. So I'll let you respond first, then I'll ask my question.
Okay. Of course, speculation is what we do here. So I'm speculating away. I think that Adobe has been looking to grow Adobe XD faster than it has been, and so they've been having their internal discussions. What are we doing right with this product? What are we doing wrong? Where can we improve? And one way you do that is look at products that do similar things to yours. What are they getting right versus what you're getting right? So of course we're going to look at Figma and probably a bunch of other collaboration tools. And when they looked at Figma, they were like, oh, look how they're doing collaboration. And look how they're putting all of the elements together. This interface is actually much easier to use than what we've created in XD, because XD, it's sort of like if you had a giant wall and then you took all the stuff you're doing and put it on Post-it notes and just stuck it all up on the wall. And now, as you have projects that get bigger, even though you can group and organize things, it can get really difficult to keep track of everything. And Figma does that much better. And Figma has some really good integrations with third-party apps that the companies are already using. So instead of expecting your users to do part of their communication in say XD and then another part of their communication in Slack, let them do the communication part in Slack where they're doing it anyhow. And then just let that part integrate back into XD, which is what you do with Figma. And so I think that while Adobe did look at Figma, or does look at Figma as a competitor on some level, I don't think it's at a level where they're crapping bricks because they're afraid that Figma is going to eat their lunch, at least in the collaboration space. But like Mark said, this is an opportunity. So the opportunity here, like you said, buy while it's still affordable. So buy this product, get all the resources now while it's going to cost you only $20 billion. Only $20 billion. And
wow.
And now integrate that into XD.
Yeah, and I would just point out, just amplify what Jeff was saying, that I know from personal experience, for things that are under NDA, so I can't say much more, that Adobe does monitor and things coming up in the creative tool space.
Of course.
And they use let's talk to you and let's think about an acquisition. And so that's a honey pot, for many startups. And that's how companies come in and they drop their drawers, right, Jeff? They drop their underpants, and Adobe gets a great education. And every now and then, a company like Figma arrives that can take advantage of it and make a lot of profit for their founders, their employees, as well as their investors. So again,
when you start a project,
that's assuming the deal closes. We'll have
Right.
to see what happens.
Yeah, and when you create a product like Figma, you have an end goal, and that end goal is probably selling the business. And for what they created, they could have been looking at their pie in the sky ideas early on, like who would be a good company to acquire us, and I bet Microsoft's name was on their list. Adobe was probably on the list, and geez, I mean, if you want to get kind of crazy, I could see Salesforce being on that list. But my guess is that they had a short list of who they would love to see buy them, and hey, there you go. Turns out it's Adobe.
Yeah, and listen, for that kind of multiple, I mean, how many years if you just stuck by your guns and said no, we're going to do it ourselves? It's not impossible that they could have made the money, but it might take a while.
So actually, on this, I'd like to make sort of a point, and guys, interrupt if this is too stock market-ish, but if you look at Adobe's financials, they report GAAP, generally accepted accounting procedures, and they try to focus everyone on non-GAAP. The difference is predominantly the amount that they pay in stock compensation, which is a cost. It's diluted, and it's paid by the shareholders. And again, looking at it for prep for the show, it's about 8%, of gross margin. So that's an enormous number. This deal again was financed 10% cash, 10% stock. So it's going to be really interesting to see what effect, the fact that Adobe collapsed from 700 to 300, if that has any effect at all on their corporate behavior, because some of this is. There's $10 billion that are real money, and there's $20 billion, another $10 billion that's funny money in stock. Which, could Adobe go down from 200 to 100? It's possible. Do I expect it? I don't know. Could it go from 300 to 400? Yeah, that's possible. Would I expect it? Yeah, I think that's more likely. Well, could it go back to 700? It's possible. Do I expect it? Not, not for many, many, many years.
Yep. Jeff, the question. Well, first of all, I wanted to ask the panel: is anybody here using Figma? Okay, good. Then I feel a little better. So, Jeff,
I know a user, a single user.
Okay,
but
I don't use it myself, but I hear a lot about it. I hear about it a lot.
Okay, so Jeff, you're probably the guy to answer this question. Canva, because when I first read about Figma, and keep in mind, I was not familiar with Figma at all. I guess because this is just not something that I do. My first thought was, gee, this sounds a lot like Canva, and I'm not currently a subscriber. I probably will be again to Canva because it does things that I want to do. And I have an idea that from what you all have educated us now with, it's the what Adobe offers and what Figma offered is a lot more extensive. But it does seem like Canva is playing in that same space and might be vying for at least part of that market. Is that a fair assessment?
I think Canva would like some of that market, but Canva to me is more like a feature set in Figma as opposed to a direct parallel to Figma. So yeah, but I bet you that the Figma team is trying to figure out, is it feasible for them to expand the feature set to be more like Figma? And if so, how quickly can they do that so that they're in a position to grab the pissed off Figma users and turn them into Canva users?
So I would add that I learned of Canva looking at some article about the Figma acquisition by Adobe, and then since then, over about the past 10 days or 2 weeks, I think I've seen at least 3 Canva ads on various cable TV news shows. So I think I'd agree with Jeff. It sounds like they're probably ramping up. Pure speculation again, but that's the nature of the show. They're ramping up their presence to get better known, for the fallout effect. And the thing is, I think all the Figma users at Microsoft, they're locked in. All the individuals are working in small teams. They're mobile. What is the mix of their customer base? I have absolutely no idea. But I know it's the corporate users that Adobe really wants to lock in and maintain.
Oh, sure. We've done a lot deeper dive into this than we usually do with a lot of stories, and especially that's when it's not an Apple story. But anytime you talk about the Apple ecosystem, I think Adobe crosses into that because Photoshop has been such an important part of both the Adobe success story and the Apple success story. And I know what Jim said about leave Photoshop out of it, but to talk about any Adobe products, and I think the story is the same. Photoshop just happened to be the flagship. But thank you to both of you for the education. I feel a lot better informed, and now I'm really curious to see how this space plays out.
As am I.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, because the one thing that right now it seems like you can't do anything that doesn't have the word collaboration in it, and I don't know if that's just the natural evolution of things, or if that evolution was advanced by the pandemic or what. But if you're not putting collaboration into your tools right now, you're not doing a very good job.
I think collaboration was already a very big part of where a lot of these SaaS companies were going before the pandemic. I think the pandemic highlighted the need for these collaboration tools, and so the options that were out there already suddenly had a spotlight on them.
Good point, Jeff.
But it's also technical because the internet has just bandwidth has gone up, and then browsers have JavaScript has kept expanding and new capabilities and performance added to JavaScript to the point where this sort of thing is possible. And this is basically what this is. It's an app written in JavaScript that's distributed just in time to your browsers. Well, that wasn't possible 10 years ago, maybe not even 5 years ago.
Yeah, true. Look at the collaboration we were doing 5 years ago. It was notes in Word and Google Docs.
Yeah.
And in comparison to what we have now, which is like real-time interaction with other people, regardless of where they are, all working on the same file at the same time, and then managing all the assets too.
And doing a Zoom call at the same time.
And doing a Zoom call at the same time.
Yeah, look what we're doing right now. We have 6, 7, 8 when Britt and Mark get back. And, it's not uncommon to be on Zoom calls for me, with 50, 60 or more. Now those, obviously those are not interactive like this is to the degree, but Jim, you bring up an interesting point, because I think a lot of us kind of forget the bandwidth thing. We sort of assumed that this was going to come, the evolution was going to happen. I don't think we realized how dependent we were on bandwidth, or maybe how handicapped we were at the time by bandwidth. And now the bandwidth is plentiful. The apps are getting better. And so we're moving much more toward that, I guess, that server-based model as opposed to the individual PC or Mac-based.
Believe me, people in the industry have had their eye on the bandwidth for decades.
Absolutely.
And what that would do.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, this throws back to, or refers back to discussions we've had, about sort of COVID and the effect on corporate and other behavior, and really this is sort of, we're just seeing, further disintegration of the physical corporate enterprise, and more ability to, you can do it because you're home 2 miles away or 12 time zones away, and that's just I think continuation of that overarching trend that that we've seen over the past couple of years.
Well, and beyond collaboration, also for corporations, it's like, well, there's no app to, like, they don't have to worry about it being installed on all their employees' computers. You don't have to worry about updates and all that kind of stuff. So even if collaboration isn't happening, it's still that kind of online functionality is attractive to companies because it's easier to manage.
Today's edition of MacVoices is supported by Kolide. Kolide is a fleet visibility solution for Mac, Windows, and Linux that can help you securely scale your business. The challenge with endpoint security has always been that it's difficult to scale, and when remote work took over, that challenge got exponentially harder. You need visibility into your fleet of devices in order to meet security goals and reduce service desk tickets. But how do you get that visibility when different parts of your company run on Mac, Windows, and Linux? You get Kolide. Kolide is an endpoint security solution that gives IT teams a single dashboard for all devices, regardless of their operating system. Kolide gives you real-time access to your fleet's data and can do things that traditional MDMs can't. And instead of installing intrusive agents or locking down devices, Kolide takes a user-focused approach that communicates security recommendations to your employees directly on Slack. You can answer every question you have about your fleet without intruding on your workforce. Visit kolide.com/MacVoices to find out how. If you follow that link, they'll hook you up with a goodie bag just for activating a free trial. That's Kolide, KOLIDE.com/MacVoices. Again, Kolide.com/MacVoices. Thanks to Kolide for their support of MacVoices. Let's move on because we don't want to waste or spend the whole show on this. I shouldn't say waste because I don't think this has been a waste. I think this has been a good discussion with a lot of good information. So this one's just more fun than anything, but I couldn't not mention that as the day we record this, the afternoon we record this, that Elon Musk apparently is now willing to go through with his purchase of Twitter.
Yeah.
This is not fun.
Well, this crew has had a lot of fun with.
He'll change his mind again.
Yeah,
really.
You think so, Warren?
Yeah,
I think he knows that he's in trouble. That corporate thing would have gone through. There would have been
until this actually happens. I don't believe it. So
it's very confusing. The apparent story is he's willing to go through it, assuming that the court case is suspended.
Right. But it would be suspended if it goes right. It's like it's a chicken and egg thing, right?
I've been reading. This is not, that's not the order that things happen. You settle and then the case is suspended, not the other way around. So this is very non-standard and not the way things are done.
It's very standard.
No, again, he's got the Twitter board's balls in a vice, and they don't know if they could win or they could lose in the court outcome. He's basically squeezing the vice and saying, "Okay, I'll settle, but this court case needs to stop," which is basically telling them, "Hey guys, stop in place."
Mark,
stop in
all
place.
The coverage, almost everything I've read has said the exact reverse as to who's in a vice.
Yeah, I don't think it's Twitter that needs to be worried about damaging their own genitals. It's
so you think Elon grabbed them by his own balls?
How is he grabbing? If he's going to be giving them way over what the market value of the stock is. I mean,
well,
no, not as of today.
They had to halt trading because of all the craziness.
Yeah, but some of the Mark. Yeah, well, who said it? I don't know if it was Jim or Mark, but I mean, yeah, the discontinuation of the legal action, but I think there was also a debt funding requirement that also was part of the alleged proposal that doesn't look, from what I read, and I haven't read as much as I'd like to, that also seemed to be something that, made the deal the proposal a little more up in the air too.
Well, that could be Elon's strategy is, okay, we'll do it. I'll buy it this own thing. And he had to find financing out in the original contract. So,
why would Twitter strategy? Sorry, but why would Twitter agree to Elon saying, if you drop the case, I'll buy Twitter is basically what he's saying.
Actually, my own sense is I think it's a combination of perception over who's in control of this, and then then potential trying to minimize legal fees, which are probably insignificant compared to the billions of dollars he's spending. But I think no matter what, he has an out if he can't get financing, and his other claims of, I need to cancel this because you're misrepresenting the number of bots and other accounts, that may or may not be true. Let's just table that for a moment. But I think right now he's saying I'll buy it. I think maybe he's feeling that maybe his court case is not as strong as he expected. So how can he get it back into something that he may be able to control?
Jim, I'm with you. Okay, so the agreement for the purchase, it basically, if we go with the genital analogy, is basically Elon saying, hold on, let me put mine in this vice, and I'm going to stand here while you squeeze, and I'm going to tell you, I'm going to dictate the terms while you're squeezing me.
Yeah, and like I said, he grabbed, and we're going to keep Jeff, like I said, I don't think Jim thought through the directionality of my comment of Elon grabbed Twitter by his own balls.
Yeah,
and we're going to have to put this agreement after dark. Probably
there's no way for Musk to weasel out of the purchase agreement without spending a lot of money. And my speculation is that
he doesn't want to spend that money.
He doesn't want to spend the money.
Well, he's going to spend money no matter what.
Right, and so it's a stalling tactic, and
I agree.
And I think the best outcome for everyone is he ends up having to pay the cut and run money, and Twitter stays as Twitter's own thing, and now they have all this extra money versus Elon getting Twitter, and then, I mean, who knows what happens to the dumpster fire? How much fuel gets poured into that?
Well, so and no one has mentioned Elon has to do a deposition in 2 days. Yep. He was looking at being under oath in 2 days, and suddenly this comes up, and it appears that he wants out of that deposition.
Well, okay, maybe, but again, this is I think the thing is that he could just say, well, screw you all, I'll pay the $1 billion breakup fee, and I just want to move forward.
And that would be the best possible outcome, I think, all the way around.
From everything I've read, it'd probably be more like 10 billion.
No, no. Why do you say that? It was reported.
That's just the legal. That's just the I'm not a lawyer, but people who are lawyers, that's what they're saying.
I haven't seen any of that, because what I've seen is that it was his original. Part of the original agreement he struck with Twitter is that he would have to pay $1 billion breakup fee.
Yeah, but he's also done tremendous damage to Twitter.
How? The stock is way back at a higher price. He hasn't hurt them at all.
I suppose if that stays, do you think that stock's going to stay up at that price?
Well, I don't know. I know. I think one of two things happens. It either closes for $52.40 a share, or it goes down to 20. In which case, he comes back and says, "Okay, I'll buy it, for $10 billion instead of $30 billion." But for a long time, I thought that's what his objective is through all this, bots and false advertising and other things. I think that I think it was a tactic on his point to try to reduce the price. I don't think it. And again, today he did say, yes, I'll buy it at that price. So there's other reasons that we can only speculate about of why he would do that. But it still seems that, yes, he's still interested in buying and owning a platform.
I don't think he's interested in
I
buying
don't
and
think
owning
so.
the platform.
Yeah, Webb, I want to get you in. Yeah, no,
No, I was just the depositions in a couple of days. They go to court in 12 days in Delaware, I think. The
Yes,
Chancery
Delaware
Court.
Chancery Court, and he's going to lose hugely.
I don't think so. I really don't.
okay, Webb, I want to hear more about that because I don't feel like this is a done deal against Elon the way that the rest of the panel seems to be.
Yeah.
Why do you say you don't think he'll lose?
I don't think it got beyond the letter of intent stage. Okay. And because of that, he does have some rights to back out under certain conditions. One of them could be the financing. I'm sure there are other conditions. We've never seen the purchase agreement, so we really don't know. They don't publish that, so we don't know what the terms are. You talked about have the shareholders taken any harm? Well, the stock price is back up, and it went up 22% today. It's kind of hard to hold harm. And I think it's even more difficult to show that because the deal fell apart and the price tanked, that's not necessarily just because of Elon in and of itself. So anyway, I haven't been able to follow this today, except I've been reading it since we've been talking. It'll be interesting to see what happens, but I think that there will be several reasons why Musk has the right to back out. It comes down to, even if it's a $10 billion breakup fee, that's still less than the 44 that he was paying. So he still walks away, so.
Except that he walks away with nothing. If he pays the full amount, he gets Twitter, which is presumably worth something.
Now the other thing is that keep in mind that the shareholders are the owners, right? Is that as the premise? Okay.
Yeah.
And the shareholders have already voted to sell it to him.
They have. But the question I'm getting to is that, so if they get a $10 billion breakup fee, hypothetically, do any of those proceeds go back to the shareholders to cover any losses they might have taken? Is that a special dividend time?
No, it would go to Twitter.
Yeah.
But again, when I'm just searching things here. Yeah, it's a $1 billion breakup fee. I mean, Jim, maybe some lawyers have some reasons why they think it might be, 10 billion, but that's outside of the terms of the contract that we know about.
Mark, I've got a lot of friends that are lawyers. They always think everything is worth 10 billion. It doesn't matter what, but that's just the way they always add a few numbers, a few commas and a couple zeros. It's amazing. Webb,
there's the other thing about the whistleblower that Twitter had, their head of security, and I think that's one of the things that it's not any one item. I think there's going to be several items that's going to allow Musk to possibly walk away from this. Although he's saying today he wants to go back in. So,
yeah. Well,
go ahead.
No. I mean, Webb, you went exactly one of the places I wanted to go, and that's the whistleblower and the issue over the number of bots. I mean, because this whole thing has really shown a light, I think, on a lot of the social media companies that you think that they have X number of users, and you find out that half of them don't even exist. Now, that's exaggeration.
The thing is, though, that Musk agreed to make the purchase without due diligence.
Mm-hmm. Which is insane.
Oh, okay, yeah. So let me finish, Jim, and I'll be devil's advocate, but, finish.
And the thing is, Delaware Chancery Court is, they're not looking at this as just one case. They're looking at this, Delaware is a home for, a good place to, for corporations to do business. And if they allow him to back out of this deal, it's going to screw up basically all kinds of corporate, governance. And the reputation of Delaware as a good place to have businesses. So for the Chancery Court, they're looking at this. They're not looking to give Elon an out. They're looking at this as this is how corporate governance works, and what is this decision going to mean for every other deal? He agreed, and now he's just, not. It's a contract.
So what you say is true. However, like lawyers would say, there are other considerations, and there is another point of view. Is to the extent he says, well, I relied on your public declarations, to the SEC to be true. I did not need to do due diligence on the company. I relied on your public declarations. To the extent that, they're saying, well, 5%, best I can tell, that's been in Twitter's documents since, I think, 2013 when they first went public. So having been inside of, a couple of public corporations and having to drafted, once upon a time, information for a 10K for a public company, I know I have some insight and have some speculation on how this works. Way back when somebody did that and they came up with a 5% number, whether it's true or not, that's got reported. And ever since then, it probably has never been changed. They've just relied on it. Is that number still good? Yep, it is. So they go out and then publish it. So yes, I think what we have here is a really good legal, where the hell's my other hand? We have a good legal, boxing match of what takes precedence, his reliance on their public declarations, for which I think Twitter has a crappy board, but that's just my my opinion. Versus he has his contract, to go forth and purchase it. What should take priority? I don't know. That's a fight for the courts.
Yeah.
Well, whoever said it, we have not seen the purchase agreement, so we don't know exactly what the terms are. There have been a lot of reports about it, but none of us have actually seen it. So, I feel like there's always, I want all the documents in front of me before I start passing judgment. Because I hear what Jim's saying, and he's got a great point, but I also don't think that you can, we don't have a system that comes in and says, gee, what's this going to mean for everything else? We have precedents so that we're guided going forward. But it's an ugly situation.
So again, I've got to believe that, Elon Musk saying, okay, well, I'll buy it at that price, but we need to take it out of the courts. That's only step one in a set of, moves that he has planned out. So he's probably, for whatever reason, he wants to stay out of the court system. It could be he thinks will go against him. It could be he's worried about just legal expenses of paying that. But the fact that he's not saying, well, screw you guys, I want out, I'll pay the $1 billion. I think that's the really most interesting part of this new development.
Does anybody know, and then we'll wrap this part up, but does anybody know if that $1 billion breakup fee, is that, who can invoke that? One side, the other side, or both sides? Or either side? So either side, or both? They both have to agree that we're going to break up.
I think if Musk, through some series of actions prescribed in the contract, if he does not perform, then he'll be obligated, and then of course probably what's going to happen, then Twitter will say, okay, sue to get the fee, and he'll get it. He might just voluntarily man up and say, I made a mistake. Here's $1 billion. Let me move on.
That definitely sounds like Elon Musk.
That totally sounds like Elon Musk.
Yeah, but again, that's my point. He's not doing that. He's not doing that. So that's why I'm thinking he's gamed out. A bunch of more moves and counter moves in the chess game against the Twitter.
I really feel like right now he's standing there with that vice between his legs, saying, "Don't you make me squeeze this any tighter."
Yeah.
He could be. He could be. But
I think
does he have underpants over it?
Maybe his lawyers finally, made him realize that this was his best option.
Could be.
Maybe so. This is a subject we will definitely continue to talk about as
exactly, because
whatever
But,
happens.
it could be that by our next meeting, he will own it.
It is possible.
or it could be by the next meeting he said, okay, I want to buy it, but my funders, backed out, and goodbye.
Well, if that was the case, why didn't he just do that a long time ago?
Oh, because
there's a process you got to go through. Yeah,
exactly. There's a process you need to go
so
through.
why hasn't he been doing that? If that's an option,
how
why
do
is
we
he
know
doing all these ridiculous hard things if he could just say, sorry, I can't come up with the money?
So, Jim, I would
Optics?
rephrase your question is, we don't know if he's been doing it or not. Your question should be, why has he not been doing it in public where everybody could see?
And how can he do that when clearly he owns enough Tesla stock that he could sell that and come up with this money? So, you can't go to the court and say, well, I don't want to sell my house to make this money. And it's like, no, you made a contract.
Again,
I don't care how you finance it.
No, I think part of the terms of the contract, were conditioned on financing. It's sort of like, you go out and buy a house. You always, if you're smart, not a moron, you have a financing contingency out of it. So I'm sure that's why I think this is an opening move of a completely new gambit of Musk v. Twitter.
If you're smart and not a moron, what does that have to do with this conversation? We're talking about Elon Musk. I mean,
he's smart. He's smart, and Twitter are the more right. I would say Musk is smart, and Twitter board is the morons. In my humble opinion.
Yeah.
In my humble opinion.
This Mac Voices Live panel isn't done with Elon Musk or Twitter yet. We conclude that part of the discussion in the next edition of Mac Voices, and then take a look at the EU's requirements for USB-C charging. That's all next time on Mac Voices. I hope to see you then. Until then, and as always, I'm Chuck Joyner. Thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with Mac Voices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices, or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you Mac Voices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CashFly at cashfly.com.